Hey everyone, it's Yue from the Strictly Broken YouTube channel, and though I just made a video that was talking about how I'm just not going to play that much more Weiss Schwarz anymore, I did see in a lot of my deck profiles, people really wanted to see an Adventure Time deck profile. So we did do a stream when it first released of me playing it, unfortunately, some pretty unlucky games. But since then, I've refined the list, talked to people, and I feel like I'm comfortable with this list. I haven't really played it that much since then. But not that much has changed meta-wise in English, and yeah, since everyone keeps asking me for my Adventure Time deck list, I thought I'd profile it. You guys can take it, use it, try it. It's a super fun deck. I think it's really good, really good. Other people would disagree with me, but to each their own. So let's just get started. Starting off, I got 4 Slime Princess. Let me put this in a good place. Yeah, 4 Slime Princess. Just cheap, free memory is really, really good. The deck, definitely a top priority for the deck is to get a lot of memory. And this card just plays to that game plan. Not only is it free memory, you don't have to pay stock for this to go to memory. It just has mill on top of the card. So in the mid game, if you need that extra 2-card mill, super, super useful for that. You can just plop this down, crash into something. It can go to memory maybe. And if it doesn't go to memory, you're top checking what you're triggering. So you can, like for example, if you crash with this, on the second battle, you can choose if you want to use the raspberry on the second swing or the third swing, because like let's say you check a climax, then okay, I can use my raspberry here. I can pay out the climax and keep going. So this card is super good. And speaking of raspberry, it's just I'm playing 4 raspberries as well. So this card is your primary memory card. Super, super good. It's level 1 bomb. Sorry, not level 1 bomb. Level 0 bomb. That can also go to memory. Pay 1, ditch 1, search something when it gets reversed, and it goes to memory. This deck doesn't play any plussing zeros. It really doesn't need to. You have access to Ricky, and you have access to the whole idea of big memory decks. Is like you're bleeding a little bit of hand. Once you set up your 10 memory spike around there in second deck, your brainstorms are hitting. You replenish your hand. You're hitting your climaxes off your triggers because you're compressed, and then you get your hand back. So plussing zeros, not that important. You just want these cards that can go to memory. And this card's searching for pieces that you need to play the game. Super, super useful. Next up, we got 3 Rickies. Again, I'm on 3 Rickies. I said this in the mob deck profile. Ricky, as good as it is, I want it going first every time, but going second, it's like super situational. And I want to kind of mitigate my chances of maybe seeing it less going second. So 3 copies, I'm perfectly okay with it. It's also a beat stick, so that's pretty good. But you definitely don't need 4. You can, get raspberry for it going first if you really, really need it. And yeah, I think playing 4 is definitely overkill. Rickies tend to be really, really bad going second, especially if you get rushed, because then you're just Rickying, paying that stock, taking that damage at 1. It just doesn't feel nearly as good as using it at 0 to, further your game state at 0, setting up for your 1 game. So yeah, I think I'm perfectly comfortable with 3 Rickies. If you can argue with me all you want that 3 Rickies is not the play, you need to play 4, but it's preference in the end of the day for a quantity like that. Next up, I got 3 Marcelin Brainstorms. Tap Self Salvage Brainstorm, super good with the game plan. When you are super compressed in the mid game, when you're going for that memory game plan, you definitely want Salvage Brainstorms because your waiting room definitely has better value than your deck. Your deck is frequently just first of all, your deck is kind of like random in the sense because you don't know what you're hitting off your brainstorm and stuff. Your waiting room is like you already have a plan to get what you want, and you can plan accordingly with that. So I prefer the Salvage Brainstorm for sure. This is in comparison to the level 1 Search Brainstorm that you can also play. I just prefer this one. And I do play copies of the Remember You event to get this second effect online, which is the 500 assist. Super, super good because not only is your Brainstorm your mill, your any time of the game mill, it's also your support, so you don't have to play any other kind of back row. It's a very versatile card that functions as both your brainstorm and your assist back row, so you don't need to play anything else in the back slots. Next up, I got 2 copies of the Sword Bonder. So this bonds for the sword that goes to memory that enables your stock charger level 1. It's also 500 global on your turn when the sword's in memory for each copy. So this just really helps you scale well into the mid game, right? So you're playing a level 1 combo that's not too big. You're playing other cards in your deck. All of them, your early play's not that big. They're like 10k base, 10-5. And having access to swords basically makes all your cards into glass cannons. Not only does the sword contribute to the memory game plan, it also peels off the top of your deck so you can go for your brainstorms, hit cards, and select specific cards you want. It also makes your characters really big, so you definitely want to play 2 copies of the Bonder just to get 4 swords in your memory as quickly as possible. Finally, last level 0 is this Ice King Bonder. It bonds for Remember You. I wanted to play 2 copies of this because one of them can coincidentally go to memory in the early game for no cost. And once you get one in memory, if you only play 1 copy, you cannot get access to bonding for Remember Use. So even though we don't play 4 copies of Remember You, spoiler, I want to play 2 copies of Ice King because if one goes to memory, I have access to the second copy to still bond for Remember You when I need to. The go to memory effect's pretty nice because in some ways it's kind of like Slime Princess where you can go to memory for free. So if you have 2 or less memory and you happen to draw into this card, it's like pretty nice. It feels pretty good. You don't even need to bond for anything. You just use the effect, let it go to memory, and you're good to go. So that's it for level 0s, 18 level 0s. You have basically 10 cards that can go to memory. You'll never get 2 Ice Kings in memory. Like rarely happens. You have to hard draw both, and you don't even want to send both unless you already have Remember You in hand. So it actually just never happens. But yeah, 10 cards that can go to memory here, and other utility cards. First card at level 1, I got 4 copies of the TD combo. There's big debate on what level 1 combo Adventure Time should be playing. I think it's the TD combo. Some people think it's the standby combo, and there's also the on attack salvage J combo. I think that one's actually the worst one to play, and let me explain. So the problem with that card is that the mill is mandatory. So if you don't want to mill in the mid game, you kind of have to, and you have to play if you have to be forced to play that card down, you also have to be forced to mill. I don't like having the mill mandatorily be tied to the card. And so I like tested with it and stuff. I'm not a fan. Also, the choice trigger isn't as selective as gate trigger. So when you trigger the choice, you have to like get cards that you can't play at level 1, and that's just really frustrating. So ultimately, that card I just don't think is good enough. The standby combo, I just don't think it does enough damage, honestly. And I need damage in the early game. It's like really important to me. I also don't think standby is like that good as a trigger for this deck because you're forced to play cards that are good standby targets in a deck that already struggles for like deck space. Like I'm having a lot of trouble fitting in everything I want to fit in, and I managed to do that. But if I was playing the standby combo, I have to make more concessions to what I want to play for my game plan. So I'm not a fan of that one either. And then ultimately trial deck combos, good stuff. Vanilla on attack check top 4s are a little bit weak, but you have sword event to make it bigger, which is great. It's good stuff. Not only that, it helps you mill, and it helps you get out of first deck as fast as possible. Sometimes first deck is you're not in the best deck state, and having access to that kind of mill combo is really nice. It's combos with a gate. Like I said earlier, gate is way more selective than choice, and I'm a big fan of that fact and that aspect that I can just gate for something like a brainstorm or gate for something like a card that can go to memory or another copy of the combo for that matter. You could not do that with the Jake level 1. And so yeah, ultimately I settled with this card, and it's been working wonders for me. Next up, 2 copies of the Finn that works with the sword. So when sword's in memory, this card has passive on reverse stock charge. It's super good because once you get into a mid game and you have to spend so much stock throughout the game to get your 10 card memory compression spike, this card helps you start recovering that stock in the mid game. When you start canceling a bunch, when you're stabilizing with your early play heals and everything, just having this card pick off a column is like super good. It helps you build that stock and lead up to your finisher, which is like an extremely powerful finisher. 2 is fine because this deck, like, you don't really need more copies because like your opponent's not going to give you the opportunity to do that many more reverses. Not only that, it's just really bad in matchups where it can never get the reverse. So you don't want to see too many of it because those matchups, this card is basically unplayable. Like you're talking about like the big standby decks and stuff. You just cannot field this ever, and having a dead card in your deck is just not a very pleasant thing. So 2 is perfectly fine. You can get it when you need it, and if you don't need it, you just don't play it, and you don't see it too often in your hand. So next up for the memory event cards, we got 4 swords and 2 remember use. So I already explained these cards and their effects quite a bit when talking about other cards, so I don't really need to talk about them anymore. But the one thing about playing 6 events is that your Slime Princess in the early game has more whiff potential. So sometimes it's actually like better to get the Slime Princess Crash in when you already have sent a bunch of your events to memory. It just ends up working out that way. The other thing is don't forget you can use Remember You, the other effect, to get it back to your hand. Sometimes I do forget. I tend to want to put it on top of my memory, so I remember that because it is a very useful effect that comes up in the mid game. You know, you need to pay 2 stock deep, or you need to get rid of a climax that you drew. Like, you can always get access to Remember You. Just remember that this deck has 0 problems with hand fixing out climaxes because this card exists. And then, yeah, the sword event is just absolutely insane. Like, it was very underrated during spoiler season, but this card is so good, making all your characters glass cannons, and giving access to stock charge, giving access to, you know, it's a memory card at the end of the day that self-replaces, helps you peel for brainstorms. Like, sometimes you'll take the minus, like sword becomes a minus because you weren't able to check a character or an event, so you end up checking a climax, but then you just brainstorm and get the card back anyways, which is, you know, not great value, but not bad value either. So card's actually quite phenomenal. And yeah, that's it for level 1s. And I think that's it for memory cards. You have 2 of these, 4 of these, 2 of these, 4 of these, and 4 of these. That's 16. So usually in absolute capped memory state, you're at 15 because you actually can't get 2 of these into memory. 15 is basically your cap. And when you have 15 memory, at that point, it's just like Exodia. You basically won the game. Unless you're playing against like a deck that has something that washes your memory out of your memory, it's basically free. Yeah, that's what I have to say about that. These are now onto trigger cards. So the rest of the deck is just filled with trigger cards to enable your choice to be a little effective. And these cards are just good, so yeah, but the rest is all triggers. 1 anti-change bomb, level 1. Super, super good against standby stuff, against early play stuff. You need this card, and you can basically in the mid game, once you hit it, hit that compression amount or whatever, if your opponent's canceling a lot, you can keep reusing this because you're hitting your salvage brainstorms. And like I said, salvage brainstorm super important for this. To reuse this, you can use your Remember Use to grab it. And yeah, 1 copy is perfectly fine. You don't really need more than these kind of cards because the deck can get anything it needs in the mid game from the waiting room pretty consistently. 1 copy of Free Fresh. There's just some situations, like this card's a good card, so you're always playing it, but the specific situations is like when you get so compressed, you have to make difficult decisions about like how you want to trigger and how you want to play your turns out to try to keep that compression as good as possible. And Free Fresh counter kind of helps you simplify some of your decision making. You'll be in deck states, for example, where you have like maybe 3 climaxes in a deck of 5 cards. You have early plays down that are winning field at this point, and you know one of the climaxes that you can trigger is Door. So having this in the bin, or having it in the bin helps you. You know, I can make the decision of now I can attack into this deck state because I can just get Free Fresh counter and reset my deck state if it goes poorly. If it goes well for me, that's okay too. I just cancel twice and move on. So, you know, having the Free Fresh counter is just really important to simplify those decisions. You know, other decks have to be like, yo, do I want to brainstorm here? Do I want to, you know, play a mill 2 card? Oh, but then there's still 2 climaxes in my deck. What do I do? Very difficult to make those decisions. So the Free Fresh counter just helps with that. Obviously, if this deck had like an actual on-play Free Fresh, solves those problems as well. But no, it doesn't have that. It just has this. And this one's perfectly fine because it's also a counter that can help you win lanes at level 2. Onto level 3s, I have 1 copy of this Bounce Assist card. So the bounce is good. It helps you, you know, out Rider. If it comes up, helps you out a bodyguard in the center lane. If it comes up, helps you out stuff like, you know, any kind of big assist that makes it hard for your finisher to reverse too. So card is just versatile. As a 1 of, it's perfectly fine. You get it when you need it. If you don't need it, you just don't get it. And yeah, that's it for that card. Memory Kick Assist is pretty good because when you're playing, like, this deck will play a lot of grind games, I'll tell you right now. Like, you have to be comfortable with playing super, super long games. And in those kind of grind games, if your opponent hits 3 first, plays down their finisher, but doesn't do them, they like just play down as healers, and then you slap this down and kill them and send them to memory, they just can't play the game anymore. You're like so compressed that you can't die, and they don't have finishers. So you actually, it's just a free win for you at that point. So having this access to this card, super, super good. As a 1 of. 2 copies of the Bubblegum 1 cost early play healer. Again, every card in this deck will read gains 2k on play, or gains 2k on your turn. Every card will read that because you have sword. So 12k attacking early play, backed up by like a assist 500. It's pretty big, and it's just, you know, once you hit like a good comfortable mid game where you're compressed and you're canceling, having access to this card just to heal down and keep yourself low before, like, keep yourself from hitting 3. pretty good. You only need 2 because everything in this deck you don't really need to play that many of except for your core cards, because it's pretty easy to get cards later on when you're compressed from your salvage brainstorms. But I do play 3 copies of Finn. Sorry, not Finn, Jake. I get them mixed up all the time. I play 3 copies of this card, and the reason why I think it's good is because once you hit a certain mid game where let's say you're out of these slime princesses, you're out of swords and such, you kind of like need cards that can help you mitigate your deck. And it's just very convenient that this card along with brainstorm can do that, and you can peel up to 9 cards plus 4, 13 cards in the mid game. Let's say you just went through a triple cancel and you're uncomfortable with your deck because it's like 15 card deck with 2 climaxes. Having access to Jake as a potential mill 5 is just really, really good in itself. You go double brainstorm, play a Jake down, and Jake really helps you just keep resetting your deck. It's a great card for that. You don't you don't have a free fresh on play free fresh, so you have to use cards like Jake, brainstorms to keep resetting your deck into a comfortable state where you can start canceling again and abusing your compression to just win the game that way. So I play 3 of these. Furthermore, you do want to put this card in memory because you don't really want to put your boss monster in memory. In level. Like if you go to level 1 and you have to put like a yellow card in, and you don't want to worry about experience later, because experience is on. In the end of the day, like if you can get it in early, you don't have to worry about it later, and you don't have to make those decisions later. So the earlier you can get it in, the easier your decisions are later for what to level. And just having a level 3 yellow card is great. Because you also you actually want red a lot of the time because of the level 1 combo, but you don't really want to put your bubblegums and your just any of your bubblegums in memory, to be honest, in level. Sorry. So having access to 3 Jakes, one's usually going to memory, and you're perfectly okay with that. And then finally, the boss monster, best finisher in the game by far. People have charts about how it's just absolutely bonkers, and you kind of need to have a bonkers finisher because, as you can see with the whole deck, there's nothing to interact with your opponent's compression. If your opponent's doing something similar as you, like a deck that with a similar concept, you kind of, without such a powerful finisher, you have a hard time killing people. So having access to this when you're stalling and people are canceling over and over, and you just slap down double of this or triple of this, you're pushing a lot of damage with this card and winning from, if they're 3-2, 3-3, 3-1, or if you get triple off and they're 3-0, they are dying a lot of the time. So you really do need a card like this, and conveniently also it heals. So even if you're not going to go for finisher, this card is your healer as well. This is exactly the kind of boss monster this deck needs. And yeah, definitely a 4 of is a must. So that's it for the main deck. For climaxes, we're just playing the 2 combos, the 4 gates, and the 4 choice. So again, with the Jake level 1 combo, 8 choice is actually such a pain because it also forces you to play more triggers. 12 is not enough for 8 choice. And the deck has such a hard time fitting in cards that it was just a pain trying to put in more triggers to make 8 choice more consistent. Gate is actually quite good because it lets you choose from any of your cards, not just your trigger cards. And this combo is just really good in itself. On play, if you have swords, it's just bigger on your turn, and then the combo helps you mill, helps you get through first deck. It's definitely perfectly fine as a combo. So that's it for the deck list. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And let me know if you have any questions about the deck, about how it plays. I'll be happy to answer it if I have the time. And yeah, it's UA signing off. Peace.